Here's how I lost 20 pounds in just 3 months of cutting. It's a lot simpler than you would think. Really, with losing weight, with losing fat, the main thing is you want to be in a calorie deficit. That means you're burning more than you're taking in. But if you want to preserve muscle with doing that as well, you have to keep your protein intake high. You have to continue working out. So really, for 3 months, that's what I focused on. And I lost 20 pounds, got to leadership in my life, and I'm happy. This is how in 3 months I lost 20 pounds cutting while still maintaining muscle. Losing weight or losing fat is simple. It's really just calories in versus calories out. It's gonna come down to just burning more than you take in. You really have to be in a caloric deficit. But it's important that you want to maintain or build muscle while you're losing this weight. So then this is where the low calorie, high protein diet is gonna have to come in. You can go online, you find a calorie calculator. You see your maintenance weight. You see your deficits. Really, it's just you want to stay with that low calorie, so you're in the deficit, but you have your high protein up, so you're still building muscle. This is what and how I ate. Prioritize satiating foods. Potatoes is my main source of carbs, rather than say rice or bread. Um, Lean meat like chicken breasts, lean ground beef, lean ground turkey, um, Greek yogurt. Foods that's really going to keep me fuller, without being too high in calories. In terms of protein, I aim to get around 0.75 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Some days it's a little bit lower, some days it's a little bit higher, but stay in that range. You want to limit your highly processed foods. So when you eat these foods, it's still gonna make you hungrier. You're not gonna feel full. You're gonna end up eating more. Go over your calorie limit. Same thing with snacking. You start snacking, you're gonna be uncontrollable. Start eating. This goes to my next point, probably the most important point here. You want to eat intentionally. Now this means you want to really think about what you're eating, when you're eating, how you're eating. This could be planning out your meals, planning out what time, how you're gonna eat this. You be consistent with it, because if you're not intentional, you're gonna end up eating whatever, whenever, go over your calorie limit, just be out of whack. So you want to stay intentional, not just with eating, but with this whole journey. Just be intentional, know what you're gonna do when you're gonna do. Um, you can be creative with your desserts, with your cheat meals. I say cheat meals in quotation marks, because really for me, a cheat meal wasn't going over my calorie limit. A cheat meal would say make my own pizza at home. Use Greek yogurt as a crust. Use fat-free cheese. Sell rice and flour, Greek yogurt for the crust, fat-free cheese on top. That's a cheat meal for me. That's pizza. Obviously, it's not going to be as greasy. It's not going to be as caloric dense as regular pizza. But I still get that feeling of eating pizza. It's going to be lower calorie, high protein. Or if I'm going out, I get the grilled chicken, a healthier option, with the broccoli, a healthier option, but I substitute the mashed potatoes with fries, or I add some shrimp on the side. So I'm balancing it out. I'm still staying under my calorie limit, but I'm still balancing it out. It's not something that's going to be like you know cause me pain to go out and eat. In terms of desserts, there's a lot of options you can do. You can get Halo Top ice cream. Greek yogurt, a great choice. Even just making your own stuff. Say if you're craving brownies or cake or something. You can make a low calorie, higher protein, type of brownie thing. Add a banana to that, to the flour. Add some Greek yogurt, cocoa powder, some sweetener, and boom, you have lower calorie, higher protein, banana brownie bread. You want to eat easily trackable foods, especially if you're going out. You just want to look at the menu beforehand, know what you're going to get when you're going to eat out, so you don't have to get there, look at the menu and be like, oh shoot, everything here is 1,000 calories. I'm just gonna go ahead and get this. You don't want to do that. So in terms of when you're actually in the gym, when you're burning calories, the main thing is you want to still have intense workouts. Go to the gym. Have the intensity at least 3 to 4 times a week. Um, so doing this, you're gonna be building muscle while also burning calories. You want to use cardio as just a supplement to lose weight. You don't want to have cardio be the main thing you're doing. Because if you go to the gym for 3 to 4 hours, just going to treadmill, sure you're going to burn a few hundred calories, but you're not going to really be building muscle like that. It's going to be a waste of time compared to going to the gym, actually working out and building muscle. So just use cardio as something to help you lose calories, not as the main thing. On top of that, you want to increase your daily activities. So that means, taking more steps, maybe, playing a sport more, just doing more stuff with your body on top of, working out. Another huge point is you want to have adequate rest and recovery. That means, even when you're at the gym, in between your sets, if you're doing a heavy compound set, maybe, rest 2 to 3 minutes. Or if you're doing, a set where it's just you're targeting one muscle group like your shoulders, rest, a minute and a half. And then that's going to extend to outside the gym as well. You want to make sure you're getting good sleep, high quality sleep, eating the right foods, eating enough of the right foods, just recovering right. So this is my personal timeline of this cut. I started in February. So you can see you still have the muscle, just not too defined. Can't really see my abs that well. Um, you can see a little bit of fat on the arms. Just not that defined, but it's still in good shape beforehand. Um, you know, we go a month into March. That's when you start seeing more definition, especially around the abs and the midsection. The arms start losing a little bit more fat. You definitely start seeing, the cut taking, some progress. We get to April. That's when you can see, this isn't gym lighting; it's the regular lighting. Start seeing abs, straight on, more arm definition, leaner in the face. And we get to May. May's like a night and day difference. Um, Clearly see the abs, lean down, V taper. You have on the arms, defined vascularity, leaner face. This is, all 3 months. So, it's not gonna, as long as you're staying consistent with what you're doing, um, it's definitely able to, you're definitely able to make progress. You're definitely able to, do this, especially if you start working out beforehand. If you already have, experience of working out, all it takes is really just a few months to get lean. In terms of actually being a cut, the mentality you're gonna have, the mentality you're gonna have to develop, really starts with changing your relationship with food. I noticed for me personally that food is like a comfort thing for me. It's like even when I'm not hungry, just the feeling of eating, that brings me comfortability. That's something I'm used to. You have to change that because when you do that, you're just gonna start eating whenever, whatever. You're gonna start gaining weight. It's not gonna be good for you. So you really have to change that relationship. You don't see food as a comfort thing. You see food as fuel. You want to stay consistent. You don't have to be perfect. If your caloric goal is 1,600 calories a day, that doesn't mean every single day you hit 1,600. Maybe some days you hit 1,800. Some days you hit 1,400. You just want to be consistent. Don't let one bad day push your whole schedule out of whack. If you hit like 2,500 one day, or you go like 500 calories over your maintenance. Don't let that day ruin your week. You can just get back on track and continue to lock in. If you don't see any too much success right away, don't change the formula. Stick with it, stay consistent. When you start, you might lose 5-10 pounds of water weight, but then you might really slow down on the scale. But that's just a normal thing that happens. You want to stay consistent with it as long as you did the math beforehand. You know what your calories are. You have a workout plan. You don't want to keep changing that up. You want to be consistent with it. Allow time to take its course, because it's going to be a process. You have to be patient. But, of course, if anything, progress isn't linear. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be times where you don't see anything. Times you think you might be going backwards. But you have to stay locked in, stay consistent with it, keep going. The main thing is really you want to enjoy the process of it. Fall in love with the mentality you're going to develop. You really, after achieving my goal, getting the abs. Losing 20 pounds, I still have the mentality of like, I'm not just gonna eat whatever, whenever. I'm kind of be intentional with my eating. If I know one day, I'm gonna go out with my friends, eat a lot, the day before I might not eat that much, or I might, eat, a low amount of breakfast in a day, you know. So it's really just, your mentality is gonna keep that. You're gonna keep that mentality with you. Just gonna overall be, a healthier thing for you. If you're on your fitness journey, if you're trying to get on your fitness journey, or if you need any tips or advice, shoot me a DM, we can get to work.